everybody. My name is Marlena, and my good friend Jane and I were chatting the other night, and we realized that the conversation we're having might be beneficial for other people to kind of be listening in on. Background is in yoga and Ayurveda and Reiki and wellness and holistic lifestyle wellness training. You guys enjoy hanging out with us.
Yeah, I'm Jane. I'm a chauffeur certified meditation instructor and an artist, and I also do strategic planning for nonprofit organizations. So Marlena and I were talking about energy and how important it is to protect your energy and to put your energy where it belongs, and how painful and difficult it can be sometimes when you realize that things that you thought were good for you and right and perfect for your path are actually things that may be holding you back, right, Marlena?
Yeah, that can be kind of a smack in the face. It can feel a little confronting and a little difficult sometimes for sure. But I've kind of found that those things that like are like the gut punching things that like make me go, oh man, like what's that? And I really don't like, are things that I get the most out of kind of diving into and going, what's that about? Like why is that bringing up these feelings? Why do I hate that so much? Or why is that making me feel so uncomfortable? Or and really just learning to ask those questions of why, taking that little step back and that little pause, like what's really happening here.
Right, just to stop and use the knowledge that, I mean, we all are collecting all this knowledge all of our lives, and when you start to put it into use and really have the mindfulness to step back in certain situations and say, oh my gosh, it's like a light bulb goes off and you're like, oh my gosh, this is what I've been studying and learning about, and this is exactly how it was described. And after you take, like you had said, Marlena, after you take the initial steps of getting over the worry and concern about how other people are going to react to how you're living your own life, and it starts to fall into place better. It starts to feel good to be able to take that.
It does. There's definitely like that struggle and that balance finding in the beginning when you first start like setting boundaries and creating new habits and new routines for yourself. But I learned some powerful things from some of my teachers over the years that really just changed the game for me. And like one of them was, other people's opinions of you are none of your business. Like, and that was like one of those light bulb moments. It was like, oh, wait a second. Like, yeah, that's kind of true. Like as long as you're, you know, doing right in the world, not moving with malicious actions, all of this stuff exists within some boundaries, right? It doesn't give you free reign to like go be like a serial killer. And you're like, well, other people's opinions of me are none of my business, right? Like, no, you still have to like, as long as you're on the straight and narrow, living within some certain parameters. Like, yeah, none of other people's opinions of you are none of your business. And like the fact is, most people are sitting around worrying that other people are thinking these things about them and not thinking any things about other people. So like think that that's what you're doing most of the time, right? Is sitting around worrying that other people are thinking all these things about you that are only existing in your brain. So if that's how you're spending your time, that's what everybody else is doing most likely. So no one is actually thinking about you even or worrying about you. They're worrying about what you're thinking about them. Like, so it's just this waste of time that we're all doing. And when you free yourself of that, you go, oh wow, wait, like it doesn't actually matter if I just worry about me and like being a good person and being the best version of me I can be. I can stop worrying about all this other stuff and just
Right.
let all this shit go and all this nonsense go. It's
So
like,
how do you feel though, Marlena, like when, like, what happens when you discover personally, I know the answer for me, but when you discover that something that you trusted or a person that you trusted is actually working against you and a drain on your energy. So we say, yeah, probably nobody's thinking about you, but what happened that in that moment when you discover they are thinking about you and they are drained, like attached to your energy in a really negative way, and actually celebrating things that have gone wrong, or maybe not celebrating, but taking joy in it.
Yeah. And, I think we're all guilty of doing that at some point or another, right? We've all seen somebody fail, and there's a little piece of us that goes like, we've all done that at like one point or another. And it's tough when you're on the receiving end of that, right? Like when we realize, especially somebody that we thought was like close to us or we valued, in our lives, when we find out that it's actually the opposite, that's really crushing. It's really devastating. And I think first, the most important thing for us to do is like acknowledge that sucks. We spend a lot of time in our life and in our culture, to like pretend that everything's okay all the time, and that like stuff doesn't suck. Like, be upset, those feelings are valid. That crushed feeling that you're feeling, that upset, that sadness, that everything that you're feeling, those are valid, and allow yourself to feel those things, and know that that's okay. And I think like that's number one in any type of those situations where we find ourselves like suffering in some way, right? Like there is suffering, it's real, and it's okay that like something sucks for a little while, but we can't get stuck in that, right? And most people end up kind of stuck there, like mad at that person, and like that person did me wrong, and like we just live in that place of like this sucks, but
Or
you
frozen,
gotta,
because you're frozen from it, right?
yeah,
You're like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to handle this fact that has just come about, that has come to be, has come to light, that this person or that I trusted is not a trustworthy person, or is hating on me. Everybody uses the term haters. We all know that term. And like, I think that's where the action comes in. So
yeah,
that's what's
yeah.
important to take away from this, right? After you acknowledge these feelings.
After you acknowledge it, yeah, now what do we do with it, and like, how do I process these feelings, and how do I handle them so that I don't get stuck in that place, right? Because then you're ending up just like that person is right now. You're just in like this hater loop with people,
right.
and
You're like feeding it.
we end up there a lot in the world. Somebody does something wrong, and we think we're right, so we think our hate is vindicated, and our hate is justified, and our hate's okay. We see this all the time in the world right now. There's two sides to everything. I'm right, you're wrong, so my hate's okay, your hate is bad. And that's where everybody ends up stuck. My hate is better than your hate because my hate's right. Well, no hate is that. We got to get away from all the hate. So like, good, bad, right, wrong, we got to alleviate all those things. There's a reason this person is behaving this way. It doesn't justify their behavior. It doesn't make it okay. And it doesn't mean that you have to continue to subject yourself to the abuse of this person. But we need to understand that like there's a reason, right? If somebody's hating on us, it's probably because of some insecurity, some fear, something lacking in their life. There's something going on that's causing them to look at you and behave this way. So when we can kind of remember that, right, then that allows us to start to move forward with our plan of action. And that can get really situational. Sometimes it's going to be right to confront the person, right, and talk to them and be like, hey, I noticed this thing, like, let's talk about it. It made me feel this way. What's going on? Sometimes, maybe it's going to be better to just cut a boundary with that person and cut them out of our lives. It's really going to depend on what's going on and what that level of abuse and hate and stuff is happening. I never want to tell somebody like, oh, you should always go talk to the person, right? Because maybe that's not the case, and we're not going to get anywhere with talking. Sometimes it is just, I need to cut this person out of my life and just move on. And
then I think that when you do that, when you actually get to the point where you can do that type of thing, it feels good. Like you're going to know in your body and your heart and your soul and your mind, you're going to feel that it's good if it's the correct thing to do.
Yeah, I think by moving through all of those things, right? By going, okay, like something happened to me, and acknowledging that and sitting with that and feeling with that and working through all those things, by working through all these stages and all these processes, yeah, that's how you get to the good place, right? That's how we get to the end of it. And we don't feel guilty about that boundary that we set, right? Because we know, at that point, and this is why it's so important to like learn to trust yourself and learn to be okay with yourself and learn who you are and what's important and what's valuable, because that's that's how you feel good about these decisions, right? We go through this whole process, that you're making the right decision for you, and that this is the best decision, this is the best course of action, and you can kind of move forward and let things go, without those feelings of guilt, without that heaviness. That you did all the steps, right? You worked through all the process, and you can release all that guilt and all that stuff.
Right. It's totally different thing than like ghosting, because like ghosting, you hear about that all the time. That's a form of abuse. It's not the correct way to handle a situation.
Mm,
Like if
yeah, like the first chance should be talking. 9 times, I feel like most of the time we should be able to at least have a conversation. And maybe post that conversation, we're gonna go, okay, I can't have this person in my life anymore, right? You can still at that point set the boundary if the conversation does not go well. But like in most situations, yeah, we shouldn't be just like, cutting people off left and right. You should have the conversation if it's a safe and logical place to have a conversation with that person. Only in those really extreme situations should we ever be like, ghosting somebody and creating that kind of boundary.
right.
Not most times a conversation is probably the right first step, and saying like, hey, what's happening, right? And sometimes people are going to be open to hearing us and listening, and sometimes people aren't. And when people like immediately shut you down and they're going to tell you your feelings aren't valid, and they're not open to hearing and not opening to listening to you, well, then that's maybe a relationship you want to reevaluate, right? How much time do I want to spend with this person?
Or
How
if they
close is this
use
person going to be in
tactics,
my
or,
life?
or if they use, sorry, if they use tactics like gaslighting or any type
Yeah.
of thing where that you've seen before and you come to know as like a personality trait that they're going to
Mhm.
use against you, then you're not making any ground. And at that point, you're doing what's right for yourself to say,
Mhm.
okay, I need to turn away from this and I need to walk away from this. And
Yep.
so I had been thinking about like what celebrities say, you hear all the time, like all kinds of people, not just celebrities, but saying, oh, the haters make me stronger, right? So I'm like, I never really got that until recently when I made some decisions in my life where I'm just like, I just can't deal with certain people anymore. And I don't take that lightly. Like it was
Mhm.
a growing experience for me. And that was when the light bulb went off. I was like, oh, so that for me, the haters made me stronger
Mhm.
because they made me take a really good hard look at myself and decide on what I'm worth, what my peace of mind is worth to me, what my
Mhm.
personal, and they made me grow as a person because of that. So, it's true. That saying is, that cliche is true. The haters do make you stronger because if you're willing to do the work, you're going to come out the other side and you're going to feel
Mhm.
good about it. You're going to feel better about the whole situation, even though it was just such a mess in the middle, you know?
Mhm. Think of that. That's true anytime for anything in life. When you do the work, like nothing that's easy is ever worth it. All of these little cliches, all these things exist for a reason. And anytime that you put the work into something, you always feel so good at the end. It's always like that job well done feeling, when you look around and you did the work for something, whatever it is, whether it's something tangible, you built something, you created something, you made something, or you took the time to really do the inner work, that all of the stuff that you and I work with and do with, Reiki, yoga, meditation, all of this stuff is about sitting down and taking a time out and doing the inner work. And that's the only way to get there. There's no magic pills, there's no easies, there's no quick switches, there's no easy route. There's only diving in, doing the dirty
Totally
stuff.
true. And that's totally true. And you have to be fearless. And when it comes to protecting yourself, because you're all you've got, really, like, we've got this one shot to walk through this life together. And if you're,
Mhm.
you know, like, I'm so thankful to have met someone like you to walk by my side in this life, and then there are those people that maybe you met early on that were there for a different reason, to teach you a different lesson, to support you at a different time. And as you grow, you may grow apart. And then there are the people that you haven't met yet, right? The teachers that you
Yeah.
haven't met yet that you have to look forward to. So I do feel like, in a sense, that, like, you have to clear things out too in order
Mhm.
to welcome the new in. And we, as practitioners of well-being, we both know certain tricks. Definitely there are shortcuts to
Oh yeah.
getting to these spaces. And I mean, it takes practice. The shortcuts take practice, but they will get you there. Right. So
Mhm.
we both thought that we should probably give you guys, anyone listening to this, something actionable, because, that's something that we can give from our hearts to other people, for their own personal use, should they find themselves in this type of situation where they're on the receiving end of some kind of drain, of some kind of toxicity, some kind of relationship that's just not good anymore.
Mhm.
um so I think, for me personally, deep breathing, uh obviously meditation, and mudras are really fast shortcuts to getting to a place where I can assess what's going on.
Mhm.
What do
Oh
you
yeah. Oh yeah.
think?
Without a doubt. And I think it's important to have these little like actionable things, all the practices, all the philosophies, all the rules, of this of yoga and meditation and these ways of life are very, very simple to talk about. They're very simple to say and to express, but they're really hard to implement. And it's practice at the end of the day, which comes down to it. And yeah, they're these practices, these lifestyles are full of these little tools that we can utilize throughout our lives at different points and in different ways to help us gain that focus and gain that perspective and be able to be in a position to do this inner work that we're talking about. So yeah, I think you nailed it with the deep breathing. For in yoga, it's all about the art of the pause, being able to take a moment in between stimulus and response so that you're not living in this fight or flight. You're not living in survival mode and just reacting to life all the time. You're actually living in this place of peace and calm where you can choose how you respond to each situation. And it's not such survival mode, it's thriving instead of surviving. And yeah, deep breathing, you and I discussed maybe some practices we could bring today to share. And I thought about just like a nice deep three-part diaphragmatic breathing that we can talk about from a yoga standpoint. That's just super accessible. Literally everybody can do it. It's a safe practice. It's good for everyone, and it's like one of those things that's like a lot of bang for your buck. So simple, so easy, but like so life changing. The benefits are like endless to this breath work. I mean, calming your nervous system, bringing you that peace, that pause, that space between stimulus and response. I mean, it's good for your digestion. It's good for stress levels. It's good for, I mean, your blood pressure. I mean, like the list literally goes on and on and on. We don't have to get so technical, but just know that like it's good for all the things.
Right, right. And, and,
um,
and most importantly, if you find yourself in a situation where you have that, you are feeling like bombarded, or you're feeling drained, or you just don't know what to do, this is what you do. This is what
yeah,
you
like
do.
you don't have to remember like, oh, I do this practice for this thing. Like this is like all the things. Like it's the good for everything. It's like the chicken noodle soup of breath works, right? It's like
Right.
good for all the elements. Like no matter where you're at, no matter what you need, this is gonna give you the regulation. So those are my favorite kind of tools. Is like very little thinking involved. You don't have to remember There's nothing to count. Like there's nothing complicated or like, oh, I'm feeling this way, so I'm supposed to do this, and I'm feeling this way, and I'm supposed to do this. Nope, just one thing. It does everything. It's perfect.
So let's do it. Let's do it. Why
All
don't you
right.
lead me through
So
it?
I'll lead you through a few rounds, and you can do this is something you can do as many rounds as you want of, up to maybe like 10 or 15 breaths. But I would suggest doing it at least like 3 or 4 anytime you're going to sit down to do this. And the reason this is so powerful is because we tend to be very shallow breathers. We breathe up here in this more upper part of our chest. And that's where most of us breathe all day long. Very rarely do we breathe. I'm going to move the camera back a little bit so you guys can see me a little better, right? Very rarely are we breathing all the way down here into the low belly. So this 3-part breathing is going to access all 3 chambers of the lungs. So we can breathe into the low belly, we can breathe into this mid belly, and we can breathe all the way into the upper chest. So the way you're going to feel that breath, right? You're going to feel the low belly expand when you fill up this low part of the belly. And on the exhale, you're going to pull the belly button all the way into the spine, like you're squeezing out all the air in your body. In the middle breath, right, we feel the chest expand and open, and the upper, we feel the breath come all the way up into the collarbones. So we'll just start with just kind of 1 or 2 cleansing breaths, just to like kind of clear space and kind of sink into this. So you can sit up nice and tall, kind of let the shoulders roll down the back, right? Think about creating space between the shoulders and the ears. Neck is long. You could be in a chair, on the floor, anywhere you feel good. And just take a nice deep inhale through the nose, and then we're going to exhale, sigh it out the mouth. And do 1 more of those. Nice deep inhale through the nose. And exhale. All right, so now we're going to come into this 3-part breathing. So you can even bring 1 hand to the low belly and 1 hand to kind of like this middle chest. That helps you kind of connect and feel this. We're going to start to slowly inhale through the nostrils, breathing all the way into that low belly. Feel it expand. Mid belly, and all the way into the upper chest. Feel those collarbones rise. Hold the breath at the top. And then we're going to exhale in the reverse. Collarbone, mid belly, low belly. Squeeze that belly button in. Push out all the air. Pause at the bottom. And start your next inhale nice and slow. Low belly, mid belly, upper chest. Hold the breath at the top. And exhale. So each round of breath here, you can try to be a little slower, a little more controlled, right? Try to breathe a little bit deeper, fill the lungs up a little bit more. Right? Pause a little bit longer. And same thing in the reverse on the exhale, slower, longer, more controlled. Okay, elongating that space between the breath. And as you're here, we're creating this mind-body breath connection. Right, we're breathing deep for maybe the first time today, all the way into the bottom of the lungs. We're retraining the lungs how to breathe, all these beautiful benefits. And we're just creating this space, right? So do 1 more together. Inhale, low belly, mid belly, upper chest. Hold at the top. Exhale, upper chest, mid belly, low belly. Squeeze all the air out. You can see just a few breaths, right? Such a sense of calm, such a sense of separation in whatever was happening before we did that.
That was awesome. It felt great. I feel so much better just from that little bit.
Me too.
Nothing
Like, and
was nothing was wrong, but it
yeah,
just
I was
feels,
gonna say I didn't feel bad, but I still feel better, you know?
yeah.
Mm,
So thank you for that. That was great.
uh, thank you. Yeah, I'm like, ooh, I'm all like ready to like just sink in right now.
Jump on the mat real quick.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was going to talk about a mudra. One of the mudras that you can use if you find yourself like overanalyzing a situation or calculating, rationalizing. It's probably excess pitta. You know about this because you've studied this, but
I call it
so
spinning when I'm spinning.
So the Padma mudra, the lotus mudra, is something that we can use for compassion. And in this case, we're going to use it for compassion for ourselves and the situation that we're in. So basically, you want to take your palms and place them together at the bottom, and then place your pinky and your thumb together and keep a little bit of space in between there. And you want to anchor your awareness in your heart. And you can even say, one of the things that we live by and one of the things that we practice at Chopra is having a kind, compassionate heart. And we just breathe into our heart and hold that mudra. And we can incorporate a mantra. A mantra is known as a mind vehicle. And one of the most beautiful, simplest mantras that we can use is the Soham mantra, which means I am. And so while we focus our energy on our heart, our compassionate hearts, we can simply breathe in on so and breathe out on hum. Or you can simply say I am and breathe in on I and out on am. And we'll do that just for a few cycles of breath. You'll probably start to feel your hands heating up and the sensation of more openness and expansiveness in your heart. So I am. I am. So and as we release that, we can bring our hands together in Anjali Mudra, which helps balance us, and simply let it go and kind of slowly open our eyes. And naturally you can practice that for as long as you'd like, for as many cycles of breath as you'd like. And as in the drawing behind you, if you're a visual person, you can visualize green around you. That's the color of our heart chakra. And it's really focus on expansiveness and compassion, and being kind to ourselves. And that will help anchor our awareness back into our hearts, which is essentially where we want to be making decisions about this on this topic from.
I love that. What a beautiful mudra to bring into this topic and this conversation, because yeah, it really comes down to that at the end of the day, is this idea of having that compassion for yourself. There was one point where you said something, and it made me think, yeah, you have to set those down because nobody else is going to do it. You have to take care of yourself and prioritize yourself, and the way we treat ourselves is the way we teach everyone around us to treat us. So when we create those healthy boundaries and we do those really good things for ourselves, we're showing everyone else, that that's how we roll, you know, that's how you gotta play to be in this energy, you know, and in this space. So we naturally just attract people that are gonna treat us better, you know, because that's the energy we're gonna be putting out. So it it makes for a really beautiful life.
Yeah, and don't be discouraged, because
Mm.
the higher up you get, the more work that you do to look at these things and to face these things, the more, that all of these challenges in life just brings you to the place that you're supposed to be.
Yeah, it's always worth it, you know, and don't be afraid to like reach out and talk to a friend, somebody, anybody, us, you know, call me, call you. That's what we're here for. You know, that's why we're sharing this conversation, is because I think a lot of times the biggest problem is we feel very alone. You know, we feel like we're the only one having a hard time. We're the only one struggling, especially in today's world of like social media. You know, people just share the good stuff. So when you're having a bad day, sometimes it's really easy to kind of get stuck in this place of you're the only one having a bad day or a bad time or suffering in this way, and we can forget that like we're all going through it. You know, we're all going through it. So reach out, talk to somebody, you know, don't be afraid to share and open up, because you never know, you know, well, who else is going through something and might be able to help or offer you some perspective, or you know, sometimes it just makes you feel better to realize you're not alone, you know, that we all have problems.
Right. It's such a great way to honor yourself. It's just a great way to
Mhm.
honor yourself and take care of,
Yeah.
none of us are without our flaws and without our challenges. If we were, we wouldn't be here.